Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm Lysha from Lysha Be Creative, and today's tutorial is a burst tumbler template design. So I have kind of been a little bit late on this trend. I've only just recently been getting into these burst templates, and I have to say I'm really enjoying myself. So I'm going to show you a burst tumbler template that I have worked on and give you some tips and tricks that I found has really worked for me when it comes to glittering and applying these burst templates. So of course, everything I use in today's tutorial will be listed and linked down in the description box down below. Definitely make sure you give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, as well as follow me on all of my other social media platforms as well. So let's go ahead and jump right into today's tutorial. All right, so before I can get started on my template, I'm going to show you how I cut and get my template ready for application. So the first thing I need to do is I use my measuring tape to measure the width of my cup as well as the length of my cup. So I'm going to be using a 24-ounce plump today, and the sizes of that are about 9 by 9. I'll have the measurements down in the description box. The next thing I'm going to do is open up Cricut Design Space. I've already purchased this lemon and lime burst template from Tumbled Over Design. She has a Shopify website, which I will link down in the description box, as well as a link that gets you directly to this template. So it's super easy to get your template into Cricut Design Space. It comes as a downloaded file. You just upload that into Cricut and then select that cut image and apply it to your canvas here. At that point, you can change your settings to make sure you have the correct measurements. So we're going to be cutting this using cat scratch training tape. So you can purchase this right off of Amazon, and this paper comes in 2 sizes. So it comes in like this skinny size, which is the one I use for the 24-ounce plump, and then it comes in this larger sheet size, which is perfect for when you're using something bigger than a 24-ounce. So you're going to cut this with the white sheet up, and you're going to make sure that you have cut settings set to washi tape. So my template has now been cut out on that cat scratch tape paper, and so this is a double-sided sheet of sticky adhesive essentially, and so I always cut a little bit of excess out of that sheet. So now I am just using my paper cutter, and as you can see, it's a little bit difficult because obviously it's a white top, so it's a little bit hard to see like the edges and seams, but I'm going to use my paper cutter here to cut as close to the design as possible, making sure I don't cut too much where my seams wouldn't meet up, but I want to make sure that I cut as close to the edges of my template as possible. That way I can make sure that I have a nice clean seam and make sure I don't have any issues trying to get the top sheet off when I haven't cut as close to the edges of that template as possible. So just going around and making sure that I am cutting as close to that template as I mentioned as I can. And this is a great opportunity to measure this on your cup. So I'm going to end up showing you that I'm going to measure this on my cup as well, because I want to make sure that my template is going to fit around my cup and that my seams are going to meet. So real life story, the very first template that I did was a sunflower cup. It actually was one that's already on my YouTube channel. I used it for the discussing or talking about the Samantha script font that was on sale a while ago. And so that template, I did measure my cup, but I didn't measure correctly. And I cut the template, I didn't measure it on my cup, and then it turns out when I went to apply it, I had like a 1-inch gap. So I'm not even sure how I messed up that bad when it comes to measuring, but it's possible. So definitely make sure that you measure twice before you go to start to glitter this, because that would be the worst thing that could happen, because it's already happened to me. So then you have to try and figure out how you're going to fix it. So here I am just measuring that on my prepped and painted 24-ounce plump, making sure that everything is going to fit perfectly and that the seams are going to match up, and I'm not going to have any issues when I go to apply the template to the tumbler. So now we are ready to go ahead and get started with glittering. So of course now it's time to glitter. So I am going to speed this up, but I want to just kind of explain the process. So I'm going to be using quite a few glitters, which of course I will list down in the description box with where you can purchase them as well. And so this is a lemon and lime template. So I'm actually going to pick up a couple greens as well, which is not shown, but I want to explain to you kind of what this and how I kind of map out the template. I will tell you that the hardest part of doing these burst templates is figuring out what colors you're going to use. I have a huge amount of glitter, and I have the hardest time figuring out what colors I want to use in these templates each and every time. So thankfully I knew I needed to at least stay with like greens and yellows for obviously a lemon and lime template, but it still was difficult to figure out which colors I was going to choose out of those two glitter colors. So what I'm doing first is I like to start my templates with one of the darkest colors or start with the background. So in some templates, you'll have like a black outline or choose to do a black outline. I would definitely choose to go with your darkest or darker colors to start with your glittering. I like to glitter my templates flat because I have been also known to miss glitter sections on accident. Real life, I've done this. So this is like literally my third or fourth burst template that probably came out the best. So I definitely have done this all trial and error and have definitely also messed up quite a few templates. So I want to make sure that when you guys are choosing to get started on these, if you haven't already, that you don't make some of those mistakes that I have made. So you apply the glitter, and I like to try and use as the smallest amount of glitter as possible because most of my glitter is going to be contaminated. So I end up putting any of the glitter that drops on my paper after the first color in just a dump cup. So after you've gotten your first glitter color done, I use a chip brush in order to brush off any of the excess glitter before I go into the next sections. So this is the sped up process of me finishing off the template, but you just go section by section and apply your glitters. So here is where I forgot to grab my green glitter. So I had to do a combination of my yellow color and my green color to be able to do kind of the outside rind of the lemon and limes. And so this is a process. It probably takes me a good 45 minutes to an hour just to glitter. And really it's just making sure that I'm getting every single section glittered and not misglittering. That's really what takes the most amount of time. But I love playing with glitter, so this was not a difficult thing to do. Put on your favorite jams and you will have the best time glittering. Now that my glittering has been done, I'm going to spray seal this with clear gloss spray paint. So I do this 3 to 4 times before I am ready to apply this to the cup. So this is me spray painting the cup. So notice that I do have a yellow can of spray paint, and I'm going to show you spray painting, which I've talked about a little bit before, but short spurts really does make it so much easier when you're using spray paint, making sure you don't get any drips when you do those short spurts. I did end up changing this back to white, and you'll see why in the next clip, but I wanted to show you a little bit of spray painting because I never get to do that. So I spray painted my cup. It is now dry. My template is also dry after multiple coats of clear gloss spray. I did tape down my template to just a piece of cardstock paper just because I have had issues where my template has rolled up on itself, and that's caused a lot of bubbles underneath the template. So to avoid that, I like to just tape down with a little bit of painter's tape on the back to keep it flat the entire time that it's drying and I'm applying the clear gloss spray paint. So now it is time to get this onto the cup, or so we think. So I'm going to take my cup and I am going to again put the template on my cup just to make sure that everything again is going to meet up. I want to make sure that nothing crazy happened with my template in between me measuring it the first time and glittering it and spray sealing and all that good stuff. So right now I have just a pretty good sealing job. I don't have any movement of glitter, so I'm trying to do my very best not to scratch any of the glitter off because obviously that is still very possible. This is a very, very thin sheet of double-sided tape essentially, so I want to make sure that I don't damage my design while trying to measure it up. So I like to use my cup cradle because this is the best way that I have found to apply the templates after they've been glittered and sealed. So I use just my little dental weeding tool that I use to weed any of my projects, and I pull up the front piece away from the backing. And I'm going to apply this just like I would apply a piece of vinyl, doing a full vinyl wrap. I love to use my cup cradle. You guys know I rave about this thing because it literally is the absolute best thing when it comes to applying vinyl lines, when it comes to doing full wraps on a cup with vinyl. It just really comes in so handy when it comes to needing to apply anything to a cup straight. So this is where things went wrong. Okay, so I thought that a yellow background would be great. Upon applying that very small edge there, I realized that the lemons were going to be completely flushed out and you couldn't even see the outline of the white glitter that is in between all of the sections. So I decided to very quickly abort mission. So all I did was I took this right back off of the cup and left it face down, so the glitter side down, and went to spray this again with a flat white spray paint. So again, I'm going to measure this around my cup, and this time we're actually going to apply it all the way around the cup and not have to hopefully go out and do any more glittering or sealing of any sort. So I'm going to measure that around the cup, being careful not to adhere that side that is already exposed until I'm ready. But I am now going to set this back in my cup cradle now that everything is lined back up. And starting with that exposed sticky side, I'm going to apply that edge of the cat scratch tape that's glittered to the cup. That way I can begin to roll on the rest of the design onto the tumbler. So take your time with this. I talk about this all the time when I talk about sort of doing any sort of full wrap vinyl. This is definitely a practice makes perfect type situation. You won't always get it on the first try, but if you practice a lot and do this quite often, it really becomes that much easier. Some things will take me just a few minutes to wrap, and there's other times where it takes me, 20 minutes to get things aligned when I'm doing a full wrap. So, trial and error, and definitely do your best to make sure that you have everything secured and lined up before you go into committing to wrapping the entire tumbler. Nothing would be worse than glittering this whole thing and then everything being misaligned and having to remove it and start all the way over. So I am just pulling the backing away from that double-sided sticky sheet. Man, I am just tongue-tied today. Holy moly. Anyway, I'm just pulling the backing off as I slowly adhere the sticky sheet to the tumbler, just pushing that down just like I would with a piece of vinyl, but I'm trying not to kind of push down too hard to where I could scratch or remove any of the glitter off that top sheet. So going slowly here, just like an inch or so at a time, to make sure that I get everything lined up and that I don't get any air or any wrinkles or anything underneath the sheet. Then when you get to the edge, then I am just going to very carefully make sure that I can get my seams lined up as perfect as possible. And then here I had just a slight overlap, which I had expected I would have, just a little bit of an overlap. So I'm going to take my craft knife and I'm just going to trim up very carefully the little bit of overlap that I have there to make sure that I don't have like a weird wavy bump after I apply my coat of epoxy. So once this is completely lined up and I'm good with the seam, I'm going to take this back outside and spray seal it one more time. I want to make sure that I don't have any glitter movement whatsoever before I commit to going in with 2 coats of epoxy. And right now I'm testing out a couple new epoxies that I have been kind of on the market for finding a new fast set. And so I'm going to apply 2 coats of a fast set epoxy, about 20 mLs each, to make sure I have a nice smooth surface to work on. So I have already 2 coats of epoxy on my cup. I'm now going to work on my decal. So I found this sweet summertime decal from Etsy. You certainly can grab whatever quote that you want to use, and I'm going to put a offset behind this. I believe my offset was 0.55 with the rounded edges, not the square edges, and I'm just going to change the color. So you're going to see that I change it to like a yellow and blue. I end up cutting the original design in white and leaving the background as that teal blue to kind of match the background of the Tiffany Hue glitter that I used for the background of this image. So once I am ready, I'm going to size this to 3.15 inches wide. That was a perfect size for my tumbler, and I'm going to get this cut on my white and blue vinyl. So here I have both of my images sort of weeded and ready to go, and I decided I wanted to try something a little bit different. So I didn't have a yellow vinyl that I loved on hand. I just didn't find one that was going to match the yellows that I used in my glitter design. So I decided that after seeing a few people on Instagram and TikTok do this, that why have I not yet tried this? But I'm going to use Harvest Moon, which is the yellow alcohol ink from Jen's Crafted Gems Inks, and I'm going to apply this to the white vinyl using just a makeup wedge like I always do when I use alcohol inks on cups. And I am just going to apply a nice kind of even layer to my image there, the top image, and then go in with just a little bit of plain alcohol, so 91% alcohol in that bottle there, and just dab this to get a little bit of white to show through as well. This is a step that you could completely skip if you want to. Definitely if you have a yellow vinyl, you could just go with yellow vinyl if you're going to recreate this as is. Or if you are ever in a situation where you need a colored vinyl that you do not have on hand, I definitely would use this hack that I saw on Instagram from a few wonderful creators. This really has been a lifesaver with some of those designs where you need the perfect color and you don't just have the vinyl that you need to match. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to use a piece of tape to adhere those two together. But while I am waiting for that to dry, I of course am going to clean up the rim a bit, and we will sand this top rim. After the 2 coats of the facet that I was using that I've been testing out, I really had a relatively smooth cup, a couple bumps along the edges, but nothing too crazy. So like usual, I'm going to do the least amount of sanding that I need to do as possible to make sure I still have a smooth cup. So using that nail file tool around the top edge, creating that fine line of stainless steel up top so I have a ledge of exposed stainless steel to adhere my final coats of epoxy. And then I'm just going to take a 100 grit sanding block to the rest of the cup just to kind of knock down any kind of sharp pieces and bumps for any of the glitter that kind of came through the surface, if you will, that just needed a little bit of a light sanding, so I had a nice smooth cup. I am going to keep the bottom of this cup completely white. I'm not going to do anything with it. I didn't even need to go back in and spray paint it. Everything looked really good, so I'm going to keep it white. I'm not going to do anything with that bottom piece other than just to sand around the edges and make sure I have a smooth surface down there as well. Then of course clean this all off with 91% alcohol, and it'll be ready to apply my decal. My tumbler is all clean, and so now I'm just going to take a piece of transfer tape and I'm just going to layer my 2 sheets of vinyl here, one on top of the other, starting with the yellow sweet summertime image first, and then layering this on top of that sort of teal blue vinyl that I'm using as the offset or background for this cut file. So the way that I like to align things is the hinge method. So I'm just going to secure, after I've removed the image onto the transfer tape, just that backing again so that I can get things lined up. That way I can make sure that I have everything lined up the way I need it to before I commit to adhering it to the rest of this. I have occasionally also done the go with it kind of method as well, where you just kind of, stick it, adhere it to the middle, and hope and pray everything lines up. But you can also use the hinge method as well to make sure you get the perfect sizing over your offset every time. So now I'm just going to apply this decal directly to the cup, smoothing from the inside and then making my way outward. I then will just remove this top sheet of the transfer tape, and that is it. So this will go back on the turner for final coats of epoxy. So let's go ahead and take a look at the final result. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's tutorial. I hope that you picked up some tips and tricks to use when you try your first burst tumbler, and I hope that when you do, you tag me. I'd love to see all the different designs that you guys are out there creating. Definitely make sure you give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.